All right. Welcome. Welcome to the Wenner Folsom podcast. And again, we are your source for battle-tested leadership and resiliency.
And Joseph Campbell said that the cave we fear to enter contains the treasure we seek. So we're going to all go into the cave. We're going to build a fire and stay a while. So welcome.
So today on this episode, we're going to talk about why the lone wolf dies. Most of us in our culture have been taught to become the lone wolf through TV, movies, film, storytelling. That usually you see this man, and like Batman is usually by himself if he doesn't have Robin, or a lot of characters are this lone wolf. And so I think a lot of our culture has bred us to believe that the lone wolf flourishes, but in actuality, the lone wolf dies. And we're going to get into today, if you are a lone wolf, chances are this is why you're not getting the results you want in your relationship. You're not getting the results you want in your career. You're not getting results in your finances, or you're not getting results in your health. So today we're going to dive into that topic so you can start to realize why this may be the central piece to what's missing in your life.
Facts. And hey, just notice that many of these anti-hero lone wolf stories, the character dies and then is generally saved by some partner or an ally. And that is one of the big lessons in all those stories, is that Batman needed to be saved by somebody else, whether that be, sometimes it's just the public, right? The public has to save Batman. That's a regular occurrence. And there's one of the famous stories of Hercules and the Hydra. I know I jumped right into full nerd on you. The Hercules, one of the 7 labors of Hercules, where he has to go and fight this fucking gigantic water dragon thing. And he cuts the head off because he's the man, and then 2 more grow out. He cuts those 2 off. Now he's dealing with 4, 8, 16 heads. Hercules cannot defeat the Hydra. So he goes back to town and goes, can't do it. And there's this young man, Aeolus, who goes out with Hercules. He's just a dude. He's not a hero, but he's got a torch. So Hercules cuts a head off. Aeolus burns the neck. Head off, burns the neck. And in Greek, Aeolus actually means the public or the people. So the metaphor there is, for all of us, warrior class people who are fighting, serving, saving, being traumatized, we cannot defeat that Hydra unless we have the public supporting us. Super cool. Thank you for bringing that up, man.
Yeah, and I think just another point I want to make is if you are a lone wolf, it's really easy to convince yourself or to rationalize what's happening, right? You're living in a vacuum. There's no outside perspective. There's nobody that is willing to challenge you. If you're going to say, hey, I want to be in good shape, but I'm eating that shitty pizza 3, 4, 5 nights a week and fast food as a regular diet, you may convince yourself that it's got protein or it's got XYZ, and you can rationalize it. But if you got somebody holding you accountable, of somebody you trust in a tribe, they're going to raise the standard for you. Same thing goes not in healthy relationships, right? You need some people to tell you the truth sometimes and give you feedback. The same thing happens in your career or your finances. So just remember, how do you get actual perspective if you are in a vacuum? And it's really easy to convince yourself that, oh yeah, this is the right choice.
Yeah. Hey, so why did you get in such good shape in the last 6 months? What was
Mine was a combination of both tribe and brand, so connecting it to service. So for me, first, we have a Grails process that we do every quarter where we set goals. We then have accountability where we post our goals, and Philip and I do these together. And so actually having goals that you work on quarter by quarter, you get to see what's working, what's not. But one, we're doing the work, setting goals. 2, we have accountability by men to trust, to express and communicate your goals to, and to hold you accountable. And then 3, really turning that into the brand and who I want to serve, right? And making it about service, not about me. So moving from self to service, which is going to be a common theme that you see on a lot of these podcast episodes. But tribe, if I didn't have tribe, I'd have been in my own vacuum, which I was doing for a really long time. What about you? Because you've also gotten much better shape as well.
Well, and listen, I see this constantly, that when any men or women who are thriving in an honor-based culture, physically at least thriving, or relationship-wise, they have support and community, They have a career clarity around their agendas and their career path. And you know you have to keep your physical standards up to a certain level so you can be part of that tribe. And then when they make the transition back to the civilian world, total shit show. They completely lose all of that. I always have this little cringe when I see the camera pan to the veterans on a sports thing or whatever. And man, there's some out of shape dudes. And you kind of go, what happened? You were the best. At one point, you're just a lean, mean fighting machine. You're running hoses up ladders and you're carrying a 90-pound ruck. You're that person. And then, boy, now we're seeing you here, just totally sad, sacked out, isolated, triple D. And again, that's what happens when you take a wolf that's built to serve a pack and hunt big game, and then you go say, hey, good luck scavenging rabbits. It's like, okay, well, why do I have to stay razor sharp if I'm not hunting big game anymore?
Well, and I think you bring up a good topic. I mean, you have that anthropology background. So could you talk a little bit? I think it's really helpful to study the history of people and wolves. And there's a great analogy what happens. And I think that lands really strong when you start to go like, oh, the wolf dies. It's
Yeah.
not. So can you give that perspective? I think that'll really land.
Yeah, there definitely is a time when there are lone wolves, and they're called interlopers because to keep the genetic diversity of packs or tribes, at some point you got to go do your own thing. And this is true in the entrepreneurial world. It's true for those of you and I were in the Army and or Air Force, and at some point you have to transition out of that pack or tribe to go do your own thing. Like, hey, I have a vision that is not expressed. So you do transition from something to something else, and wolves do the same thing. And if you're a wolf with an agenda and you got to go do your own thing, then you do go out, but you're very quickly looking for another pack. And a lone wolf lasts about 2 weeks, and then you starve to death because wolves don't exist hunting rabbits or scavenging. They're big game hunters, and you can't hunt big game unless you have an aligned group of men and women who are there supporting you, holding you accountable, providing you insights and support and specialization to get some sort of vision done. And that's the nature of both of those species, humans and wolves, is we're designed for significance. We're designed to hunt things that are meaningful and purposeful, big game. That's what we're built for at a genetic level. Like that's at a deep core, hardwired way of being. And we are unsatisfied when we're scavenging. It is not fulfilling. And I think that's what's behind this just collapse of depression and anxiety and addiction, and just so many men and women, men mostly, playing video games and porn. And it's just desperately trying to find some sort of meaning or coping with trauma and all the misery of insignificance.
Yeah, I think it's a really big reason, and I'm sure we'll get some pushback of people saying like, "Hey, I can do the lone wolf thing," because that's typically a macho thing that a lot of men seem to embody. But I would say, is that true? Is it true? And if you're really honest with yourself, are you hunting big game, or is it true to savage rabbits, as Philip mentioned a minute ago? Are you just living off scraps, or are you really in the juice of life? Because a big vision that enrolls you, you can't go after a big vision by yourself. Elon Musk isn't taking on these missions by himself. He's got full teams of people that are inspired and excited to go after a big mission. And so it takes a whole tribe and community to go after that mission. So my challenge or invitation to somebody listening would be, if you think the lone wolf works, then you probably don't have a big enough vision. And it could be in any of those areas of your life.
It's a cool African quote that I heard with the Maasai, and that was, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. So profound, because you get to be agile and adaptable, and you get freedom short term alone. And I think there's a lot of particularly men who are making that move because you don't have to serve. It's like, hey, I spent my time serving. Now I'm only serving me. And that means you get to go fast. But at some point, you get to that place where you want to go and realize you don't have the resources and the support and the accountability to actually pull it down. whatever that dream is. And so if you want to go far, and gosh, we're such a instant gratification society now that we want to go fast and get it now. And the reality is consistency is king. Any big project, it's a consistency story. And like, I'm watching you get in shape, but this is not a month-long thing of like, I'm going to go to a competition, bodybuilding competition. And I mean, that's a long journey, bro.
Yeah, I'd say anything meaningful is a long journey, and we've even set some of our missions within K4 and some of our within Valor that may take a lifetime, and we may not reach them. But I think that's what inspires us to go after those visions, because it's like, wow, if you actually accomplish this mission or even a fraction of it, you'd have more meaning in the world. It would make the suffering worth it. Like, I know there's that great quote by Jordan Peterson that says, "Suffering is worth it if you have meaning, or meaning and purpose makes the suffering worth it." Essentially, and so. Right? We all have trauma. We all have shit, especially if you have more trauma. But if you can convert that into a big game mission that excites you and inspires you, now it's worth it. It's like, oh, how do I actually create this type of impact? Which is a big part of that conversation we said in the beginning of the cave that you fear to enter contains the treasure you seek. A lot of times by going into those messy parts of life and making peace with those, they become your allies. Instead of the dragon that you're fighting, that you actually start to ride that dragon and convert it into service and purpose and meaning in life, which is it's a game changer. It changes it could change life from being bleak and meaningless to fulfilling and purposeful.
Hey, and going back to the avoidance of life to avoid the suffering. Like, that's a strategy that it's a valid strategy. The Buddhists are doing it. It's like, nope, we're going to remove the sources of suffering, which is desire, right? And so no jobs, no kids. I'm going to go live in a monastery. You're like I'm going to disengage from life, and therefore you disengage from suffering. And it works if you're taking that route. But you're getting something in return in that direction. Is you're getting some sort of a spiritual transcendence and a heightened consciousness, and you're already, you're moving towards something that arguably, and I'm not there at all, but that would be the ultimate big game, right? Some sort of spirituality. What I see is a lot of men in particular disengaging from life through video games, alcohol, and porn. And fuck. What's the end game of that journey?
Well, yeah, and we have some, luckily we have these master maps, which is a big part of what men's work is. I think there's a whole men's movement happening right now, which you see kind of this forward movement, I think, from what initially originated as the Me Too movement and the women's empowerment and expressing where men had violated and crossed boundaries. And now there's this whole other swing coming up of this men's movement in general. But in addition to that, there's men's work, which is very traditional men's work that's been around since the history of time, where men focus on making better men. So maybe we just share, we have some actual clear master maps that we've brought back from Phillips, an anthropologist, and has studied ancient cultures and histories and said, hey, what are these maps from the past? How do we bring them back? And then how do we make them relevant? And so the combination of Phillips' background in leadership and anthropology perspective in these maps, combined with my work with Tony Robbins and implementing and taking things to implement into people's individual lives, we put this combination together and said, hey, how do we take these ancient master maps? How do we look at life and say, what's relevant today? How do we research science and say, hey, what is actually battle tested to actually get results in life? That's not this woo-woo perspectives, but it's very grounded and practical, and let's apply them and get results. And then we built these master maps. So one of them, which I think could be really helpful to understand, is the tribe triangle of how you actually build a tribe. Because if you can't build a tribe, you can't do anything else. You can't have accountability. You can't have honor, right? Because one of the questions is like, okay, now I understand the value of a tribe. Where do I go? And I think that could be a little frustrating for people to figure out, like, how do I find my people? How do I find? And so the tribe triangle gives us a map of how to identify, either create your own or to align with people with similar values. Hey, we thank you for listening to the Wenner Folsom podcast. Just a couple quick notes. First, if you are a man and you're looking for an honorable and inspiring group of men to hold you accountable and challenge you to grow in your relationships, your fitness, your career, your finances, and your life, go to www.k4men.com. And if you are a veteran, first responder, or man or woman who deals with trauma, and you are looking for some resiliency tools and skills for you, your team, or your organization, go to valorresiliency.com. Hope to see you there. Back to the podcast.
And keyword is alignment. That's the big game. And this is Tribe Triangle. That's our name for this thing. This is really just ancient, time, battle tested framework or roadmap. For all you guys who have been in sports, any sort of high end team sports, this is what coaches do. This is sports psychology 101. How do I take a bunch of lone wolf, egocentric players who all want playing time? They all want to score points. How do I take all these lone wolves that are really good at getting their own individual needs met and align them in something collective, such as winning a trophy, right? At the end of the year, like the big game. Coaches do this every fucking season. It's like, oh God, here's spring training. How do I get them to work as a team? Pass the ball. Like, duh. And the military is the same way. How do you take a bunch of knuckle-headed, lone wolf civilian people who are all about themselves, and then you install the operating system of team, tribe, collaboration, whatever that is? And again, same thing the wolves do, right? When you get the interloper that comes in, who has its own agenda, it's like that agenda has to die and be replaced by a collective agenda. And the individuals that are able to integrate into that collaborative, reciprocal, big game system are the ones that thrive. And vice versa, the cultures that are able to most easily implement lone wolves are the ones that have the highest engagement and retention organizationally. So whether you're trying to find friends in a lone wolf world, or you're a business owner who's trying to create engagement and retention within your teams, this is the system. And basically, in a nutshell, there's 4 stages to this tribe triangle. And the first one is alignment. You need to find a cultural alignment that answers 3 big questions, which is, why does the team exist? Which is your vision. How do you move towards that vision? And that's your values. And then lastly, what specifically are you hunting? And that's your mission. And so for all you kind of leadership, nerds out there, jot those 3 things down. See if you can do a little bit of writing on why your family or your team exists. And that should be aspirational. How are you moving towards that? What are your 3 core values? For Joshua and I, when we built Valor and K4, we had a deep vision quest soul search of what are the 3 most important things that we believe for ourselves and our community make sense for that. And those 3 values are, we believe that growth is vital. Like if you're not growing, you're dying. Number 2, growth needs to be in service of something, right? That is bigger than ourselves. So growth and service. And lastly, how do you make this sustainable? This journey of growing and serving and growing and serving. And that's vitality, which is really another way of saying resiliency. So for K4 and Valor, we have a vision, which is creating more kinship in the world, creating more initiated men in the world, more resiliency for our warriors. Our values are growth, service, and vitality. And when people come into our orbit, you either align with those things and you get to play with us, or it's not a match. And God bless you. We'll see you around.
Yeah, and something really, really powerful about this is we have men from both sides of conversations on heated topics. We have men that are on the left and on the right politically in our K4 community. We have men that are on the vaccinated side. We have men that are on the unvaccinated side. And so you take a lot of these heated subjects. We don't have our own silo of this is our belief strategy and we attract just those people. We attract people that align with the values of growth, service, and vitality. And we find alignment with that. And what this does is you actually get some diverse conversations, and it allows my own perspective, because I'm learning as we're doing this, Philip, and building this tribe is, wow, you actually get really with men align and care about each other and have similar values. That drives the conversation. That drives where the conversation goes. And because you build respect and trust and honor from that perspective, you're now more open to listen to other perspectives and you get more insight. You actually grow and get more insight. It's like way back in the tribes, What if they didn't learn that somebody came out with the bow and arrow? If they were just in their own silo using
Right.
knives or obsidian knives, and they didn't learn that, they'd be outdated and they get annihilated. So to me, it's really helpful to be in aligned groups of shared values with different belief systems to really have healthy dialogue and
Great point.
understanding. It doesn't mean you're going to agree with each other, but you're going to get a lot more perspective in the tribe and a lot more compassion for other groups of people and what they may be going through. So to me,
Yeah.
I think it's essential to have a mixed diversity of perspectives and belief systems.
And there's the big diversity piece of beliefs, historical experience. It literally, and they've done a lot of research on this, it drives adaptability. You are more adaptable, more agile if you have more diversity in your team. If you're completely homogenous, then you have very little adaptability. And they've done a lot of research on that. It's a very good observation. You want to keep things value aligned, but as diverse as possible. It's a really, really good point.
Yeah. And one other piece is because we have men that are growth, service, and vitality as our culture, that's typically who gets our men of the year. I'm just talking about K4 for a moment, but that's who gets men of the year. That's who gets our awards. It doesn't matter their age. It doesn't matter their background. It matters how they show up around those three values.
Yeah.
And then what happens is we find people self-select out. If they actually aren't in alignment with those, they end up leaving. They're just like, you know what, this isn't my community. I want to go somewhere else where I resonate with different beliefs. And the men that do double down, triple down, get even more excited because there's such an alignment. They naturally rise to the top, and we start to give them more cred, more juice because there's such an alignment with what we're doing. So
Yeah.
you can build your own tribe. You can build this in your office or your work environment. You can build it in a company culture. And you highly recommend that you build this at home with your family and get everybody on the same page, because now you have a bunch of honor-based tribes where people are operating and follow the same practices. So we see a lot of men that come through and learn the practices in K4 or in Valor, and then they go home and build it at home. And it's a game changer once you got your community. And I know you do this really well, Philip. Do you want to share one thing that, like, because maybe people have no idea what that perspective is like a little bit about how your family operates from that at home, and what's easier for you because you guys run a similar, let's call it tribe triangle at your house.
I actually wanted to unpack one thing that you had said that jogged something that was just, which is kind of a new idea for me. I hadn't put this into perspective, but highly recommend a book called Guns, Germs, and Steel. It's kind of a classic pop culture anthropology book. It would go right up there with the book Sapiens. So if you want to look for a kind of an easy read that's very engaging, Guns, Germs, and Steel or Sapiens by Harari or Diamond, the authors respectively. But in Guns, Germs, and Steel, they talk about that the alphabet was only invented twice in the history of humanity. And if you were not a culture that was up against one of the alphabet cultures, you didn't get the alphabet. And there were certain things that stopped the alphabet from spreading, which was mostly geographical, like the Sahara Desert or a mountain range. And the alphabet was so important because it allowed people to share complex, abstract information like metal, right? Important technological shit. So if you did not get the alphabet got to you, exactly like you said in conquest. And as that relates to adaptability, this is the time for all of us warrior class people to be understanding resiliency. You need to understand how breath work works. You need to understand how meditation works. You've just been recently deep diving some of the just fucking addictive, toxic shit about porn. Like, there is absolutely battle-tested technology that is in our world right now. And if you're not getting that, if you're not in a community that you are getting that information, you're falling behind. And we're not doing well if you're tracking the suicide rates and the addiction rates. Our community is not doing well. So we need to be going to get that technology. And man, it just was a really powerful awareness about that.
Yeah, and a really good point. So not only in addition do you get challenged, you get supported, but you get new technology, is what I'm hearing you say. You get recent advancements. You get elevated to a whole different understanding because the tribe is embedding that. I mean, you look at our cultures, we got no fap communities where guys have been doing this for over a year and a half already, right? Full guys that are 9 months, 12 months, 14 months, 18 months, 24 months, no porn, right? And again, you start to research the science. Some people are 10 years back on even knowing what the science does for you. So again, you get in the right community, we're growth focused. So we're going to constantly bring different new levels of growth, and men want to grow. So they're willing to challenge themselves to put down the video game, put down the porn, put down the alcohol, and see if they get better. Like, let's test this. Let me battle test it on myself. Am I a better human? And if so, maybe this needs to be the life that I need to live. I just gave up caffeine because I realized it was affecting me and wasn't serving me, which I thought would never leave. But I know you've given up alcohol. There's a lot of things we give up, but I do want to loop back because I think it's really important. How are you better able to accomplish big game building a tribe triangle at your house with your wife and your daughter? Like, what does that do for you to hunt the bigger missions in life, whether it be fitness, relationship, finances? Like, how does that make you guys better as a family unit? Because I think it's important. I don't think a lot of people have done what you do. And I think that could be really valuable to just understand the perspective or what could that look like? What's a vision of what somebody's life could look like?
Yeah, for me, and I'm married and we have a kid, super cool. I believe that, my life is evidence of my efficacy. So you started this call by saying, hey, how's your career? Purpose aligned. How's your body? What do you look like naked? How's your bank account? How's your sex life? Like, that's just irrefutable evidence of, is your life working? Is it where you want it to be? And if not, why not? And what are you doing about it? And the answer has to do with other people, particularly the ones that you're living with or the ones that you're working with. Like, the people that you spend the most time with in your life, that's tribe. And even if it's the people at work and you say, that's just my coworker. Yeah, bullshit. You're spending 8 hours a day with that person. And if that person is not in some sort of a intimate kinship level connection, you're missing a tremendous amount of opportunity. In fact, you're working against just your birthright as a human of alignment, of working towards something. So my wife and I do a tremendous amount of time of getting clarity on Sundays about celebrating our family, about building out next week, about constantly addressing our celebrations and our hard work and all those pieces. That's kind of what you're referring to?
Yeah, well, and I mean, to me, it's also powerful. You guys have built into your schedule. You guys will meditate a lot of times together.
Oh,
You
yeah.
guys will do,
That's true.
you do your morning elixir together. When I've been at the house, you're it's just built into the routine. You guys shut down at the same time in an evening routine. You go to the gym together and train together. Like, there's a lot of areas you guys are building your aligned goals around, which makes it easier for you both to function because you're aligning and doing it together, and then bringing your daughter into that world, right? Really cool for her to see that model.
And hey, listen, I think, Nietzsche says this, that humans aren't really afraid of success or for failure as much. We're just fucking lazy. Who likes getting up and being early and being cold and exercising and not eating what you want? Like, we're lazy. That's the nature of just organisms, is to take the easiest path possible because it's efficient. So who wants to wake up early and make a morning elixir and then sit on a cushion and meditate? Like, nobody really wants to do that. It's uncomfortable. Nobody wants to go to the gym. I mean, it's hard. My joints hurt, and it's, So I know that if I was trying to do this myself, I've fallen off the wagon so many times, and I've quit so many agendas of, I'm going to do this for myself, and I'm going to write these books and get in shape. And it's like, no, you're not. We will never do shit for ourselves that we will do for other people. Honor and duty and brand and shame. Like, that's the shit that is the big engine of humanity.
So it's, hopefully we've at least given you a window into realizing how, if you are a lone wolf or somebody that's a lone wolf and they're not getting the results they want, they're not really living life to the fullest, we highly investigate how tribe could be affecting that. And how do you start to put a look at your mission, vision, values? What are you here to do? Maybe pick one area. Where do you want to grow? Where do you want to get better? Pick one area where you have a 3-legged horse and you need to work on getting better, and then decide, okay, what shared values do I want to have? And then go start to find a tribe. Either do it at home. You may not be able to do it at home initially, but maybe you can go find a tribe that can actually help you. If you want to get in shape, go to the gym. Look for the right group of people at the gym that share your similar values. If you want to get in better finances, find people that are investing.
Hey, let me get a little nudge to this too.
Yep.
When you go to the gym, talk to people. Take your fucking headset off. Talk to people. If you see another person who's got something you don't have or doing something you don't know how to do, talk to them. Ask them. Like, hey, how do you do that? What's your split? People love to connect with other people. So take off your headset, that's your own little lone wolf world. Connect with other people. Go to a jiu-jitsu gym. Do the things that you need to do to connect with people. Scary and hard, but that's what we're built for.
And chances are it's much easier to find around your passions. So things that you enjoy doing, if you hunt, if you shoot, if you are bow and arrow, if you ride, if you cycle, if you mountain bike, if you off road, like find cool things that you like doing, and then find the crew of people that share your similar values. Because you're more apt at continuing to find alignment if you find around those passions. So your challenge for today is take a look at that baseline of that tribe triangle, your vision, values, and mission, and do something this week to get into the world and connect with another human that shares similar values and something you're passionate about. Anything else to add to that?
Just to stay battle tested, people. See you next week.
See you guys.